here I am. We're going to talk about strike missions today. You know, we've done a few things actually about strikes, but this is going to be a slightly different conversation. We said, oh, you know, it's hard to get into groups for strikes. Oh, you know, the LFG. Oh, woe is us, woe is us. But today we're going to talk about some of like the high level things about strike missions. I kind of want to talk about Icebrood Saga strikes, and I'm actually curious. I want to ask your opinion on them first. What do you make of Icebrood Saga strikes compared to EOD? Like compare and contrast with Ender Dragons. Like what are we thinking? Every raid game has bugs. There are bugs in WoW. I'm sure there are bugs in Final Fantasy, right? And they're probably quite bad sometimes. But the difference is they get fixed in those games.
Yeah.
Okay. In Guild Wars 2, there have been bugs in the game that are severe, that are going to stand out like a sore thumb. In fact, I had a comment the other day, and someone said, wow, you've got a bug on every single fight. What the fuck? Roast the game, Blue. Please.
Well, okay.
Roast the game. I need you to jump in front of me and take the bullet. Please.
I will.
Yeah.
I think the rewards are bad. Strike rewards are just bad. There's just not enough unique, untradeable stuff in strikes. That's it.
We're in.
Sweet. Hello,
It's
everyone.
tea time. That's right. It is tea time. It's once again very cozy. You know, I'm seeing the lighting over there actually, Bloom. Very warm, right? A lot of orange going on over there. It's appropriate, I think.
Good morning coffee vibes. Yep.
Indeed. You know, this is the 1v1 tea time, 1v1 debate. Here I am. We're going to talk about strike missions today. You know, we've done a few things actually about strikes, but this is going to be a slightly different conversation. We said, oh, you know, it's hard to get into groups for strikes. Oh, you know, the LFG. Oh, woe is us, woe is us. But today we're going to talk about some of like the high level things about strike missions, because I think there's a lot to be talked about here, because ArenaNet has actually committed a lot to strikes comparatively, right? Well, you know, I'm going to get made fun of this, but look, ArenaNet have said we're doing 2 strike missions a year. And that's actually a big deal, right? Consider, you know, that's going to be a large amount of the instance content. We're looking at 1 fractal per year, approximately, and 2 strikes with challenge modes, of course. And it's going to be some of the big deal content with the expansion, as they're going to be shipping alongside the expansion. So, as they're positioned right now, strike missions are actually extremely important to Guild Wars 2. They are essentially the premier instance content of the game, right? And that's why I really want to dig into them, kind of talk about how they're doing, talk about maybe some issues with them, some of the things that are good about them, some of the things that I think really need to change about strike missions from that design perspective, actually. And what better person to help me do that than, of course, Bloom.
Hello.
MMO expert, video editor, hardcore gamer.
Hello, everyone. All the perfect words to describe me, for sure.
Okay, so let's get into it. I think I've kind of heard your thoughts, and we've had a few chats kind of skirting around this topic, actually, kind of on some random streams, like here and there. So I kind of want to let you open on this. Like, you know, you've played a lot of different games, and obviously Guild Wars 2 as well. And I think you have some kind of criticisms and some thoughts on strike missions. So yeah, just kind of take it away, lead us into it. Like, what are we talking about? What's the deal with strike missions? Roast them.
Roast them. Okay, so yes. As I mentioned in our like previous chat the other day, I think strike missions. So first of all, I think strike missions are good. I know that ArenaNet don't have the bandwidth to develop like whole raids every expansion. It's unreasonable, I think, to expect that they would be able to develop new raids like once a quarter, even a half year. There's so much that goes into them: the environment design, the character design, and then, you know, all the actual raid mechanics and that sort of thing. So strikes, good compromise. There are similar, like Final Fantasy 14 does similar things with their trials. It works great there. So I think having these like single boss instances, it's good. It works well. It's quick. You get relatively. I mean, we'll get into that in a bit, but yeah, getting into them, it's like a fast, just like one boss. You're in and out. You don't have to do all of it. Yes, nice.
Mm.
But as we discussed the other day, it's kind of weird to have only two difficulties because, as you mentioned, um, neither of the difficulties really cater to anyone. As in, like the challenge mode doesn't. It's very very catered to the the top 1%, and then the normal mode is too easy for for like 50% of players, I'd say. So then you've got this like weird disparity where there's like a middle section of players that aren't really satisfied with the difficulty of strikes. There's so many factors that go into that, uh, which we'll talk about, I guess. But I think the main one is not having enough difficulty modes, and also just that the strikes do not have a consistent floor. Like the lowest difficulty is different across all 5 strikes, and so as well the challenge modes of all 5 are totally out of whack and totally
Mm.
different.
Yeah, I think that is definitely my kind of central point that I think we really want to dig into here, is that I view strikes as having a bit of an identity crisis with who exactly they're targeting. And I think right now, they're almost trying to please everyone, but I think in a way they've ended up satisfying nobody except, funnily enough, I think very, very hardcore players. I'm just, in a way going to reiterate what you said to it, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that the normal mode Ender Dragon strike missions are probably they're a little bit too hard for a lot of entry level players, and especially take a long time. Right, if you're an entry level player, stuff like Kaineng Overlook in particular, this one is notorious for this. I have seen logs, seriously, I've seen logs for this where it's a 40-minute run, like a turtle run. I'm serious. I've actually seen that. I could dig that up and post it. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
It has happened. And that's a little bit weird. That's very, very strange. But the problem is that you might go, oh, okay, so these fights have got a bit of meat to them, so that's going to be good for like the more veteran players, right? But here's the thing, not really, because the normal mode strikes, they are not super crazy. Right? They're not super difficult. In fact, honestly, they're just kind of HP sponges, like, to an extent, right? Like, you have to do the mechanics, but the mechanics are obviously, they're entry level. That's the way they're supposed to be. But the health pool almost doesn't match that. So when you're a more experienced veteran player and you've kind of got the fights down, now you're just in basically an HP slogfest that takes quite a long time to actually kill. These fights kind of drag on compared to Icebrood Saga strikes. And then, but what about the challenge modes? Okay, we can do the challenge modes. Well, here's the deal. I think the challenge modes were almost designed to be one and done, right? And I think you can tell that because of the reward structure. The challenge modes, they initially had no reward, basically 0 rewards. Like, it was like nothing, right? For doing this, right? There was no repeatability to it. It was just for the title, which is not inherently bad, by the way, of course. And I think that's how a lot of players will engage, especially with the really hard ones, right? Like your Kaineng Overlook and your Harvest Temple. But here's the thing. Because they weren't really, built with that in mind, and because they're actually brutal compared to the normals, especially the harder ones, right? They are intense. I think they're not that replayable for kind of mid-level veteran players. They're only really replayable for pretty omega sweat lords. So in a way, who is replaying this stuff is a bit weird, because EOD strikes are in this really unusual position where they're really great and fun to replay if you're a massive sweat lord, but honestly, not that great and maybe not that much fun if you're anyone else, pretty much, right? Because I think they're going to be a bit of a slog and honestly a bit challenging, especially stuff like Old Lion's Court and Harvest Temple if you're an entry-level player. But if you're kind of on that raid level where you're regularly clearing raids, strike missions are kind of boring, right? They're just... they're just slow, right? And not really that engaging because the mechanics eventually become relatively trivial compared to raid encounters, right? And that means you're in this really weird situation where I don't think the demographic is really being satisfied in any way. And of course, you're absolutely correct. The big elephant in the room here is that ArenaNet unfortunately don't appear to have the resources to have proper difficulty gradation that would enable all different types of players to be satisfied by this content overall.
Yeah, and I mean it's been a problem for a long time. I mean, I feel like we had this. Everyone's had this same discussion when raids released, Same problem there, just no difficulty. We've got the challenge mode, but I think the challenge modes for raids are almost worse in how they're sort of designed. Like
Oh,
they're
really?
even less
Yeah.
incentive. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they're what is I can honestly say I've never done like weekly challenge mode raids because I'm not even
Really?
aware of what really. Yeah, like what's the incentive there to do like one challenge mode raid?
I mean, I guess
You got to do like
I guess
yeah. What is it? I
I
don't
guess
know.
the reward is maybe not proportionate to the challenge, I guess. But
Yes.
here's
Yeah.
here's interesting, and this is very hard to balance, I think, on ANET's end, because if you do a full clear with raids or on challenge mode and you don't wipe a single time, honestly, now actually I want you to say that if you do it under 3 hours, that's honestly insane gold per hour. Like, no joke. That is going to be some of the best gold per hour you're going to get all week if you can actually pull that off relatively consistently. But I think this is maybe a little bit of a good segue to talk. I did want to actually kind of bring it back to talking about Icebrood Saga strikes, and a bit of a compromise I think can work. But maybe a very brief segue on rewards here. I think one of the issues ArenaNet has is that rewarding gold, it's not going to be worth it even if it's quite good, because it's a lot of effort, right? Like, for example, if you do like a raid full clear with all challenge modes in 3 hours, you're probably looking at, I think, around 40 gold an hour. A little over, right? Probably a touch over 40 gold an hour is where you're at. That's pretty sick, right? You know, that's good. But the problem is that to get to that point where you can do that reliably, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of effort. You're going to want to have a static group probably, or a really strong pug to pull that off. You're going to have to minimize downtime. It's pretty try hard. Realistically, gold kind of doesn't cut it in that scenario. It's got to be something shiny, right? You know, in a way, it has to be. I think that would be what would maybe attract players. You know, an infusion for you know, doing this kind of stuff, or maybe you get special tokens from challenge modes, like challenge tokens that you can upgrade your legendary armor, and it looks a little bit different. You have, you know, a different effect on it or something like that. That's
legendary
pure copium, by the way.
armor variants.
Yeah, that's complete copium. Never gonna happen. But I think that's the type of thing that will be required, right? I think to motivate players to engage with challenging content, gold is not enough, because realistically, the amount of gold they'd have to throw at you to make it worth the effort would be insane, right? To be honest, especially when it comes to replaying it, when it comes to the replayability factor.
For sure. Didn't they recently change how the challenge mode rewards work? Like it was something like you got to do 4 of them. If you don't do 4, you get nothing. What did it change to for like?
Oh yeah,
for reference.
They simply normalized it across the board. Basically, you got bonus provisioner tokens and a bit of extra gold for doing 5 challenge modes. They change it to basically every challenge mode gives you 1/5 of that reward. So in other words, like just way better, basically. You went from getting 5 up to 13 now. So it's really good. I mean, I think it was a fantastic change. I'm a huge fan. And this is kind of like the same issue. That change was awesome for me, because I clear challenge modes every week. And personally, I enjoy that content. I really enjoy that content. You know, because it's challenging. I was already doing it even before the reward change was there. I would do all the challenge modes because I'm just into that kind of thing. And to be honest, I'm not really. This is a bit almost semi-irrelevant, because I don't think it's a big deal if challenge modes don't get replayed. I'm like, oh no, not the entire player base is farming Harvest Temple CM weekly. No, the world is ending. That's probably not a big deal. I don't think that. But yeah, I think it is cool to have this kind of aspirational gold farming stuff and aspirational reward stuff, like, so that players have something to work towards. Because I think that is actually one of the issues with stories. Oh, we're going off piece now. Now we're going off track here. But maybe a quick comment on this. What do you make of this? I think one of the issues with raids and strikes, really, but just instance content in general, is that the gap between pieces of content is so large and so long a lot of the time, that in a way, players don't have that next thing to prepare to. This is something that Sneb brought up, and I thought, oh, that's a great point. Like in other games, if you're playing WoW, and let's say you've got a guild, or you raid a little bit, it's like, well, we just cleared this raid, awesome. We just pushed through, we've got our normal mode raid, we've got our clear, we've got our achievements, we've got our loot, love it. But hang on, the next tier's coming in 4 months. So, I want to stay warm. I want to be ready for it, right? I want to be prepared mentally for this next challenge. In Guild Wars 2, it's a bit of an issue because it's like, the expansion has dropped. The 2 strike missions, we cleared those, and we have to wait a year now. And we will not be getting another. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough for sure. Like, I think that is one of their biggest problems. I mean, I've always thought that's always been ArenaNet's biggest problem, in my opinion, is like content cadence and content consistency, especially when it comes to like repeatable PvE stuff. I literally returned to WoW the other day because I saw the upcoming patch and then there's a new raid, and I've resubbed everything because I was like, great, I want to be ready for that raid. And yeah, you definitely do not get even remotely like a similar sort of feeling in Guild Wars. Because I don't know, like, we've got the next Fractal coming out in the next release, but what do you, like, what is that? Are you going to prepare for the next Fractal? Not really. I feel like you can just kind of wing it. Yeah, I think that's a big issue. I definitely think that releasing more strikes would help kind of build up that strike community for sure. It's definitely very awkward that, like, especially now, we got 4 strikes in End of Dragons. We've just been doing those 4 strikes ad nauseum for about a year now, and it looks like we're not getting any more until like the start of next year, probably, or something like that. Yeah, that's a long time to wait. It's a long time to wait.
Yeah. And the reason why we're many people might say, oh, well, Guild Wars 2 is not an instance content game. Oh, yeah. I want to point out that I think strike missions are awesome, actually, for Guild Wars 2 because of their nature, right? I really like the idea of them. And actually, I think they can fit really well into the culture of the game and into the way the game plays out, because they're get in, blast, get the loot, get out, right? Like, there's no, they don't take, the way they're set up, there's no trash events, right? There's no messing around. There's no bullshit, right? You can do it anytime. You can just like hop in, hop out, right? Lovely. I think the strike missions are a great idea and can be a lot of fun and actually very rewarding for players who need ascended gear, right? There's definitely some motivation there. And that's why we're talking about this. And why I think it's really important that issues around these strike missions kind of get worked out here. But yeah, to kind of go back to the demographic topic a little bit, I kind of want to talk about Icebrood Saga strikes, and I'm actually curious. I want to ask your opinion on them first. What do you make of Icebrood Saga strikes compared to EOD? Like, compare and contrast with End of Dragons. Like, what are we thinking?
Oh, End of Dragons ones are miles better.
Okay.
I don't even think it's remotely close. Icebrood Saga strikes swing way too hard in the other direction, in that they are way too easy for the most part. But they have the same weird problem that End of Dragon strikes do, where like they're all called strikes, but one, like the first one, is so much easier than the last one. It doesn't make any sense, and it's just compounded in Icebrood Saga because you have even more strikes that are following that sort of routine. And I also, do they have challenge modes? They don't have challenge modes, right? No, which is also very strange. So, I think I enjoy that so many people seem to like the loop of doing the the easy 5 per week. That's cool. But they're definitely not on the same level. I don't even think they're on the same level design wise as End of Dragon Strikes. They're just kind of like I don't know. They're like strike lights,
So, here's the thing. I think the Icebrood Saga strikes were kind of onto something. And it's that they're very quick fire. I think the reason why I think a lot of players go for, Easy 3, Icebrood Saga 5, throw in a Dragonstorm there sometimes, right? You have that kind of chain of content, is because you get in and you blast. I think it's a little bit like Fractals in a way, because I've been doing a lot of Fractals recently. Yeah. And what I've noticed is that it's just boom, fast pace, get in there, right? Even, in just a casual pug run for tier 4s, you get in, a Fractal is 5 to 10 minutes. Boom. Get it done. Grind it out, right? And I think Icebrood Saga Strike, this is going to be a hot take. I think Icebrood Saga normal mode strikes satisfy the Guild Wars 2 demographic a lot better than EOD strikes. That's going to be a hot take, I think. But actually, I think it's good. Because I think they're fun for veteran players or even tryout players because you have that speedrun element. It's like nuke it, nuke it, nuke it, go, 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 pump, 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 right? And you even have like the gold, silver rewards for like getting certain times, which I think is quite nice. And for more entry-level players, not only are they easier, maybe outside of Whisperer Jawmag, right, and Bone Skinner, right? Outside of that, they're a lot easier, but also they don't take 10 years to actually get through. I think they're a very achievable goal where you can like throw people in, like 10 random people, and you'll get the job done. Whereas I think with EOD, this is the kind of the difficulty thing, right? The normal mode is weird, right? Because I think ArenaNet knew that they had to be a bit strange with the difficulty when they were making the Ender Dragons, because they were like, well, hang on, we need to make this doable by anyone, so the mechanics can't be that hard, but you need to do them, otherwise it should kill the group. But we also need to make it last long enough so that veteran players can get some squeeze out of it, but then that makes it way too long for the new players, right, who haven't, you know, got their Omega DPSs and all this kind of stuff. I know. And it is true that not all of the EOD strikes are as long as KO, but even Aetherblade and Anka, I think they're pretty long compared to the Icebrood Saga ones, right? Like they're pretty long. And I think that the strike missions in Icebrood Saga, them being like super, super quick fire on normal mode is really cool. Then if you throw in the challenge mode on top of that, it could be pretty interesting. I do still think you are in difficulty hell at that point, because I think you're almost inevitably going to end up with a situation like Ender Dragons where one challenge mode is universes away from another. I mean, I think it's actually really funny. I would actually say that the difference between the easiest challenge mode and the hardest challenge mode is like so much bigger than the difference between like the easiest norm mode and the easiest, the hardest normal mode. So there's always going to be this like massive difficulty spread unless ArenaNet can squeeze a third difficulty setting in there. But I mean, oh man, it's tough.
That's interesting to me. I do not think. I think Icebrood Saga strikes are too short.
Ooh.
Like they're just too short. I think Aetherblade in End of Dragons is the like. I think that is the prime example of the perfect strike length, in my opinion. That I can do Aetherblade and Junkyard, and I don't feel like I'm wasting too much time. I think they're a good length. Icebrood Saga is just too quick to me. Like, it really doesn't give the vibe of fighting what is essentially like a raid boss. Like we're getting 2 raid bosses every release. If every time we got the 2 at the start of the year, they were as short as like Icebrood Saga strikes, I would feel cheated.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. That would be the normal mode. I think the goal would be to have the challenge mode be, really spicy.
Yeah, for sure. But how would you do that if the fight is already sort of designed to be quite quick? As in, do you think basically the challenge mode should be you just can't skip any mechanic? Like Bone Skinner, you're not skipping that mechanic. You got to do the mechanic, otherwise wipe.
Yeah, and this would be like the real weird thing is that if you did go more making the normal mode a bit more like Icebrood Saga, and the challenge mode would kind of stay at the same difficulty, you'd be increasing the gap between the two even further, right? Which it's just so hard to do it, right? Like as much as I hate to say it, it just feels like the challenge mode difficulty would probably have to come down a little bit overall, which I know would kind of suck for players who are really into this kind of stuff. But I don't know. I don't know how you do it. Like, it's just, there aren't that many people who do the challenge modes, right? There are a few people who do them, a few people who repeat them. But ultimately, the game doesn't really have a big community, a big culture around doing this. It definitely can, right? I would look to Harvest Temple, and a huge amount of players, right, have kind of come together. There's like awesome community around just beating this and getting people into groups and making statics and so on. But to be frank, it's still a very, very small part of the demographic. I believe there's around approximately 2,000 people in the entire game who have beaten Harvest Temple Challenge mode. And bear in mind, you can, I think like around 200 people have bought it, and around 300 of those are probably alts, right? I know people have cleared it on like multiple alts and so on. So 1.5K people, like 2K absolute max. That's not exactly a large portion of ArenaNet's player base for like the really, really hard content, I guess. So it's really interesting. It's very hard for ArenaNet to actually do this in a satisfying way, I think. I think there's a reason why, of course, other MMOs have quite a lot of the times 3 or even 4 difficulty settings. Because, of course, an MMO player base is very diverse with different interests, right, and different experience levels. So, yeah, obviously it's important to have a lot of these difficulties. I guess we could only hope that they're able to kind of pull this stuff off. But I
was gonna say you just have to have difficulty modes if you've got this diverse range of players. Because I've seen this problem in other games that refuse to have difficulty modes. Things like I play a lot of Destiny. They had a recent problem where the new raid that released was not hard enough for most players. It was way too easy. And people complained. And that's because there's no sort of like proper difficulty, and like the harder difficulty comes out weeks and weeks and weeks later. So yeah, I think the only solution is to have difficulty modes, really. Because I kind of sit, as I said in our like previous chat, I sit in that sort of middle range where the End of Dragon Strikes, the first 2 challenge modes are about the difficulty that I enjoy, and I feel like I'm rewarded adequately for. And then Kaining Overlook and Harvest Temple, I will just do the normal modes, and they give me about the same gold as the first 2 challenge modes. But it's just a very weird system. Yeah,
it is.
They just have to do difficulty modes. If not, what if they don't do difficulty modes ever? How do they?
That's not good.
Kind of make what they've got going on at the moment. How do they make that work?
To be honest, look, the answer there is you just make it a lot easier, right? It's so that everyone can access it, right? At that, if you're going to target, say, one demographic, you just target the entry level, right? Because that's where most players are in Guild Wars 2, right? That's what they would do. They wouldn't do the difficulty gradation stuff, because if you kind of do a bit of a halfway house, I think that's the worst of all worlds, right? I think with that stuff, you just don't want to do that. To be honest,
I think they should just they really need to just find a proper baseline with their normal mode, and that should be kind of like where all strikes are designed from. And then you've got the challenge mode, and that is more or less like for the veteran players, and it's never. I just think that disparity between the Aetherblade challenge mode and Harvest Temple challenge mode is like ridiculous. Like that's just way too much. And if all 4 challenge modes were sort of on the same level, and that's for all the veteran players, and then the normal mode is for everyone else, and they're rewarded adequately for it, then that would kind of be the middle ground, I'd say.
Yeah, of course, because I think, to kind of touch on that difficulty thing in general, I think an interesting effect of the way strikes are right now, and you kind of pointed this out with the challenge mode thing, is that in a way the content that is targeted at any given player will actually change, right, over time. Right, eventually the easier strikes become too easy, so they're not super interesting to you anymore. But the harder ones might still be too hard, right? For you. So in a way, the way difficulty is right now, the amount of content that a player might be engaging with or enjoying actually might be significantly lower than the actual array of strike missions at any given time, right? Just because of that nature of the way the difficulty is like so wide ranging, is that not all of it is going to be for you all the time, which it kind of makes the problem even worse, right? We're already in a situation where we're not getting a crazy amount of content for this type of game mode, But now, in a way, there's even less of it because at any given time, not all of it is going to be interesting to a player, like just because of the nature of the beast, which is man, it's tough.
Which I guess, like, I saw that problem happen during End of Dragons, where we had the normal mode strikes, and then a big piece of content that was coming out with following releases was the challenge modes of each of those strikes. And for me, that was cool when Aetherblade challenge mode came out. I did that. That was a lot of fun. Same thing with Jade Junkyard, did the challenge mode of that. That was a lot of fun to prog through. And then Kinding Overlook came out, and it was just like way harder, and I just couldn't do it. And then I kind of skipped out on that release, and then the Harvest Temple challenge mode came out, and I was like, not even gonna try that. So I skipped out on that as well. So yeah, for sure, I think it really impacts because they could squeeze out of it, like 4 content releases worth of new content by having these sort of challenge mode releases. But if the disparity is too large, then yeah, as you say, it kind of like it doesn't reach enough of the demographic that it really means something.
Yeah. And this is slightly related here, but I do want to point this out because I don't. This is going to turn into look. This is not Doom. I'm just trying to explain the situation here. This is something that I really want ArenaNet to fix. ArenaNet, for whatever reason, they don't seem to be able to maintain these strike missions, and this is why we could be in trouble with adding stuff like difficulties, because they're already struggling now. And what do I mean by that? Well, as of right now, almost every strike mission in the game has severe bugs, right? Severe bugs that can actually wipe the group if you don't know about them, or can simply kill you even if you do. They've been in the game for a very, very long time. In particular, Harvest Temple Challenge Mode has had very severe bugs since day one that can actually just flat out kill you. Some of the telegraphing is incorrect. If you phase the boss at the wrong time, mechanics won't despawn, or it will skip abilities in the next phase that can potentially be extremely game-breaking, particularly in the last part of the fight. You can soft lock yourself on Kinding Overlook. Sometimes half the mechanics don't work or do anything on Aetherblade. I think Unca actually does work outside of some like weird bugs where mechanics don't despawn correctly, but it's not the end of the universe. Right? Whisper of Jawmag is just totally busted. You can get frozen semi-permanently on Freynear of Jawmag. I think the bears work correctly. Good job, bears. Bone Skinner, as far as I'm aware, does work correctly as well. So, good shit. We love to see that. Sheer Peaks Pass does nothing, so that one's in the clear, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Did I mention Whisper of Jawmag yet? That's the most bugged fight in the entire game. Like, actually, it is broken. It is broken in every single way. There's a million ways you can break it, and sometimes if you do nothing, it will break anyway. And every game has bugs. And every raid game has bugs. There are bugs in WoW. I'm sure there are bugs in Final Fantasy, right? And they're probably quite bad sometimes. But the difference is they get fixed in those games.
Yeah.
Okay? In Guild Wars 2, there have been bugs in the game that are severe, that are going to stand out like a sore thumb. In fact, I had a comment the other day, and someone said, wow, you've got a bug on every single fight. What the fuck, right? What the hell? Like, I don't want to play this, right? That's a problem. And look, seriously, that is a huge problem. It's a massive, massive problem. Strikes are not well maintained. And not only is that a really unfun, really unenjoyable look for newer players and for anyone who happens to be watching or viewing content, it's also just frustrating to play with, right? And it just, you're going to stop having fun, right? You're going to like, dude, this is bug bullshit. I don't want to play this anymore, right? That's true in raids as well, of course. In fact, there was a moment where I was doing a training run and Old Lion's Court bugged out and just killed us. Right, basically the death zone just activated way too soon and in the wrong position. It was actually the telegraph was wrong because the knight like teleported all over the place. Like I don't know,
yeah, right.
It was really really frustrating. And ArenaNet need to address this, right? They really, really do. This extends, of course, further than strike missions. I'm not saying, oh, fix the strike bugs and nothing else. The game is infested with bugs right now, right? Just as a broad topic. But if ArenaNet want to commit to these instance content game modes, they have to maintain them. They must. Otherwise, it's just not going to be an enjoyable experience for everyone, and it's just overall frustrating. And, well, How can they possibly hope to add more difficulty settings or tune the difficulty a little bit better if they can't even fix the bugs, right? So
Yeah, and I think that problem is accentuated because they want all content to be relevant all the time. So you're doing all that content all the time. Like the ideal player is doing all Icebrood Saga strikes and End of Dragon strikes on a weekly basis. So they encounter all those bugs on every weekly run, which, yeah, I think I actually think Guild Wars has everything being relevant all the time is both a boon and a curse. Like the fact that they can't phase out older content, not like removing it from the game, but like just having a way of creating like a new focus. Like these 4 strikes, these are what you're going to be doing for the next, I don't know, however many months until you've got the next 4 strikes. I think that's a big problem. And that's probably why we encounter these bugs way more often. And it's probably makes it very hard to maintain having this massive backlog of strikes that can have things go wrong whenever they do push any sort of patch.
Yeah. It's definitely unfortunate. Because, of course, yeah, I mean, this is one of the other quite funny things about Guild Wars 2. And, of course, this would happen in any game. But sometimes things just break, you know? Like, they push a patch and a fight is completely broken. In fact, wait, this happened super recently, right? I think there was a patch a while back and it broke every single fight in raids. Right? No joke. No, it was actually more than that. It was every single instance PvE boss broke. You would just randomly die sometimes. You'd get the out of bounds pop up and just die. Bosses wouldn't function correctly in any way. I think they had to disable like a huge amount of content temporarily because it was just totally broken. Which is just weird, right? And in fact, this happened. Oh man. This is such a problem right now because, of course, I'm sure a lot of people are aware that a very popular and respected figure in the MMO community, Preach, is doing a full Guild Wars 2 playthrough, including all the raids and all this kind of good stuff. He encountered a brand new bug on the second boss of Wing 1 that totally softlocked the fight. Twice, by the way. Seriously. And it totally softlock it. Basically, 4 spirits are supposed to spawn, and you kill them to begin the next phase. But only 3 spawned.
Oh, God.
And as a result of that, the boss was untargetable forever, and they simply had to reset and go again. That bug happened twice, right? So this is not a case of, oh, Teapot, you're talking about a very minor thing that, barely happens. No. If you are a new player, you will encounter these issues. You will get softlocked or get wiped because of a bug, right? It is going to happen. Almost certainly. Just through a very standard playthrough of the content. This is not just it's no longer. A while ago, yeah, stuff was like, it's a little bit busted, but unless you kind of push the game to its limits, it's not going to break. That's no longer the case. Now, normal players just playing through the game, in instance content in general, will encounter very severe bugs quite frequently. And that's obviously unacceptable, right? I hate to be that guy, but if ArenaNet wants to kind of commit to this stuff, they want to commit to getting that fractal out there, they want to commit to getting these strike missions done, they have to maintain them, especially because they do want all that content to be relevant, as you say, and in a way be a bit of a ramp, right? There are these ones that are supposed to kind of ramp you in. They've got to work, right? If they don't work, that's obviously a bit of an issue.
Yeah, for sure. Something else I want to talk about, right? Is
let's go.
Like on that note of like ramps and stuff. They initially advertised strikes as a way to train people up for raids. It's interesting to me that they have never I don't feel like they've clarified whether that is still their stance or if they're just doing strikes moving forward. I think it's pretty obvious to to see that they're just doing strikes moving forward, no raids. But how do you feel about that?
So I'm going to give the idealistic answer, and then I'll give the practical answer. Idealistically, I think it is bad, and it doesn't work. I think that every player is going to increase in skill up to the point where they go, you know what? I think I don't want to go any further, right? It would be effort to do that. And you know what? I'm just chilling. I don't want to go any further. I don't want to stress out. I want to chill. And then players will stay at that level. And then there's kind of like that plateau. And the difficulty ramp system basically says a lot of content will be infinitely gated from a large portion of the player base. Because not everyone wants to go hard, right? Nothing wrong with that, right? Not everyone wants to pump or like grind out or spend like hours improving. Fair enough, right? So the difficulty ramp thing is not effective. So why do ArenaNet do this? Because they're not stupid. Why are they doing this? They're doing this because they can't do what we've been describing, or it seems they can't. They can't implement this baseline level across all content such that all content that's instant would be accessible in some sense, in the same way that Fractals would be, right? In Fractals, some players will just do tier 1s. And they'll, they won't progress to tier 2. They don't want that level of, increased difficulty. They want to keep their experience in tier 1 or tier 2. They won't do tier 4. Or maybe they'll go tier 4, but they won't do challenge mode. Fine.
Yeah.
But strike missions and raids don't have that kind of scaling system, right? So the problem is that some players will say do 25% of the content, and they'll never do the other 75%. Whereas with Fractals, that doesn't happen. And this is why ArenaNet have the ramp. It's because they don't seem to have found a good way to actually get this difficulty implementation going. So what do I think of it? I think it is the best worst solution, right? That ArenaNet currently has. I think it's their only play they can make because this is, oh God, chat, listen, YouTube comments, I love Guild Wars 2, okay? I just want to take a moment. I love this game. I'm the biggest Guild Wars 2 fan. WoW bad, Final Fantasy bad, New World bad, ESO bad. I actually hate all other MMOs. And in fact, all criticism of other MMOs is heresy and will be punished. You are no longer allowed to be around us. You're only allowed to say good things about Guild Wars 2 and no bad things. Just to preface that. But yeah, I just think that that's the way it is. There you go. I've got to just quickly defend myself there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
What do you think about the difficulty ramp?
Yeah. I wish that they had gone with a fractal style tier system. And they could have just used the same UI, same everything. But the thing is, if a player wants to stay in tier 1 fractals, the important thing is that they can still experience every fractal. And if they add a new fractal, they will still be able to experience that new fractal. Yeah. And yeah, as you say, strikes have this weird issue where they've got this weird ramping. And so not everyone is going to want to play Harvest Temple. And even I see on a weekly basis, people will just clear the first 3 strikes and then just not do Harvest Temple, which is just kind of like a waste of content and therefore sort of like a waste of development time. So yeah, it's just kind of like wasted potential. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Roast the game, Bloom. Please.
Well, okay.
Roast the game.
If we're gonna really roast it.
Say more. Say more.
Okay.
I think we need to go further. I need you to jump in front of me and take the bullet. Please.
I will.
Yeah.
I think the rewards are bad. Strike rewards are just bad. Not good. Not good.
Okay. Elaborate.
Yeah. Well, okay. So at the moment, the only incentive for me to do raids right now is gold. But if I really wanted gold, I could just do open world meta farm, whatever. Yeah. What's there to say on it, really? There's just not enough unique, untradeable stuff in strikes. That's it. That's my take.
Yeah. For example, the Everbloom Infusion. That is actually buyable, and it's kind of the HTCM reward. Do you think that's a mistake?
Yes.
Okay.
Should be viable.
Yeah. Because I think that infusions are probably the place where ArenaNet can go the most, I think, to leverage this. Let's imagine this universe. There's an infusion for... You know what? Let's not say challenge mode. Let's say there is an infusion that can drop or be purchased for every strike. Normal mode, not the CM. Do you think that's good?
No, I'm gonna push back and say I don't
Ooh.
care about infusions either.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
I really don't. And I don't know how much.
Ooh.
I would be curious to know how much of the player base does care about infusions. Like, are they? I don't know. They don't do a lot for me. They're just like like a little special VFX thing on your character, but it's not. It is not the same as killing big boss and getting cool piece of armor or cool weapon. That is that's my take. I think infusions would be cooler if it was like, oh, you have an upgradable armor set, and that armor set has its own unique infusion that unlocks when you've upgraded it enough, you know, and you've got like this new variant that has new effects on it. I just don't find infusions that interesting. If I dropped an infusion, I'd sell it immediately and get some legendaries. That's my take.
Oh my god. Let's go a quick chat here, guys. We're gonna check the chat. If you guys like infusions, please put Giga Chad in the chat.
I really want to know the take.
I'm gonna do a poll. I'm actually gonna do a poll. I'm doing a poll right now. Do you like infusions? Response: yes, infusions are cool. No, infusions are worthless trash. Okay.
I think. Okay, wait. You got to rephrase the question because it's either infusion or no infusion. But I'm saying instead of infusion should be cool.
Okay.
Something else cool, like cool.
Oh wait. What should I ask then? What should I ask? Okay. Should I ask? What do you prefer? Like infusions or skins? Like infusions or skins, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Infusions. Skins. All right. Here we go. I'm doing the poll. You guys have 1 minute to vote. So yeah, make it quick. All right, let's do this. Let's see what we got. I'm gonna bring the poll.
I'm intrigued.
Oh my god! Infusions are getting demolished, Bloom. Like it is.
See, I'm on the right side.
It is evisceration, actually. Oh my god! Yeah.
Look at that.
Infusions are getting thrown in the trash. Actually. Oh no.
I was right. Thank you, everyone.
It's looking like 85%. Skins.
And that therein lies the problem, I think. The 16%, those are the people running your meta events, running your like Harvest Temple challenge mode. The 84% do not care.
Okay. Interesting.
Good. Well, I'm glad that take paid off.
Here's the thing with the skins. You're also saying good skins, right?
I am saying good skins.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
you've
seen the challenge mode skins. You've seen the challenge
I have seen the challenge mode skins.
You know what? Describe them to me. What are your thoughts on the challenge mode skins?
If I like won at the Olympic Games, 100-meter sprint, and they gave me a pebble. That's how I feel about challenge mode awards. When they came out, I genuinely logged on. I wish I had like recorded my reaction because I was like, yes, mega hype, first challenge mode, Aether Blade, let's go. What have they added as their rewards? And I log in and I saw the like little dwindly like dagger thing. I was like, what are you doing, ArenaNet? What? It's been like 3 months. And you're giving me like a letter opener. I don't understand. I actually don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know who signed up on that decision. That's not like ask anyone. I don't think that's enough. It's not even remotely enough. I feel like they should have just done variants on the living water weapons and not just like his random new skin. Especially because it's like one weapon type, and not every class uses that weapon type, and it's just like a niche within a niche within a niche. It's just that was weird. Yeah, no, not good.
Certainly not ideal. There's an idea that Enko actually had a while back. He was talking about this, how you could, very much like you suggested there with the living water weapons, you could almost upgrade like some of your items, right? By playing the strike mission content, even playing the challenge mode content. I think this is a bit like this in WoW, right? I believe a lot of the rewards for Mythic are essentially a different color version of the items from a lower difficulty, right? So you might get like a red scythe. I think this was like one of the big ones. This was from Argus, I think. You would get like the red scythe instead of the blue scythe. They were like, oh yeah, you're a fucking badass. You got the red scythe. You know, like, oh shit, this guy's crazy. Obviously, you have the vertical progression as well, right? You have the vertical progression too, right? But
for sure.
Yeah, like I think you can definitely have just skins that maybe have an extra particle effect on them, right? Or have a different color glow or a trail effect, right? I think stuff like, for example, if I look at Icebrood Saga strikes, you have like the Bone Skinner Scepter. It's really cool, right? You know, you have the cool trail effect on it. It's got a projectile effect too. That's pretty sick. Right, you know, that's a nice thing that you can go after. And yeah, it is one skin. It's, of course, the Scepter, right? But there are a few Bone Skinner weapons you can get a hold of, right? You could 100% do something like that with those living water weapons that are kind of strike mission rewards. They actually can drop from Su 1 in Dragon's End as well. But, you know, broadly speaking, you know, you could make something with that. But I think something like that could be really cool, yeah. Or some way to upgrade your armor. Like if there was like a legendary armor set that you could almost like upgrade pieces of it by doing the challenge modes even. So you can have like a special effect. You can get some I don't know, like some tentacles on you or something like that. People love that stuff. You know, they go crazy for this kind of crazy content, guys. You know, it's
I think the reason
it's big.
I was disappointed that they didn't do that is because they've set a precedent, because they've done it before. They've done upgradable armor sets like the Mist Shard armor, the Requiem armor from Living World. They were all this like upgradable sort of thing. They've done upgradable weapon sets as well. They had like what in the Icebrood Saga, they just had the standard I don't remember the name of them. There's that standard weapon set, and then you could upgrade it into the icy version or the fiery version. They had the same thing with like the Stormcaller weapons, where there was just the base one, and then there was the fancy VFX one. I think that is a really cool model of rewards and itemization, and it's so just like I was flabbergasted that they didn't do like a similar thing in End of Dragons with End of Dragon Strikes. In fact, I think like all content in the game could benefit from having something like that.
Yeah. And while we're on the rewards, I feel like I have got to talk about this again. Because do you know what other problem rewards kind of suffer from? Is that they expire, right? And here's a thought. This is almost certainly going to happen, by the way. And I'm very interested, actually, in how this is going to go. But I think they're going to add an open world legendary armor set for PvE. And
yes,
do you know what's pretty interesting about that? Is that means, in a way, the raid armor is somewhat obsolete, in a sense, right? Because the open world armor will obviously be much more within reach of a standard Guild Wars 2 player. And that means that raids are probably going to get an absolute kicking because of that, which is a bit unfortunate. Poor old raids will get wrecked because all of a sudden... Because think about it, right now, you can get legendary armor from PvP and World versus World, but it's weird, isn't it? You can't get it from PvE. It's only raids, right? Which, of course, is a subsection of PvE, but like, there's no easy way to get it in PvE. You have to kind of go out of your way a little bit and get into this content. And this is what I mean with you need kind of continuous rewards, right? There needs to always be a new thing to chase after, because this happened with raids, by the way. When legendary... one of the worst things that happened for raids was legendary armor releasing. I'm not even joking, by the way, guys. It's actually serious.
Ooh.
Like, when legendary armor actually dropped, people got their armor and they quit. Seriously. They were like, yep, that's it. Final collection, done. And with the, people then maybe came back for the ring in Wing 5. And this is the thing about rewards. Like, rewards, you have to have more of them. You have to keep dropping them in front of people so they can chase after them. Otherwise, they'll drift away. That's kind of what we were talking about the, I need to prepare. I've got to be ready for the next strike mission. I've got to be ready for the next fractal. I've got to be ready to go, ready to pump, ready to blast. If you don't have that, things will kind of crumble away. And I know we're kind of doomsaying here a little bit, guys, but I promise we're not. Like, I really just want to open a conversation about what is needed to sustain an instance content scene. Because bear in mind, I'm talking about this because ArenaNet has communicated by their development philosophy and their content plan, they want to maintain an instance content scene. right? Otherwise, why would they commit to 2 strike missions? They obviously want to do this, right? Because of the way they're developing it, right? They want to do this, right? What does it take to actually make that happen? And I think you do need very solid rewards. You need a streamlined group system, which they're kind of working on, by the way. Like, with the way roles are right now, it's getting easier and easier to build a group. You obviously need to have consistent content releases, proper difficulty scaling. Like, we're just hitting on all of these important things, right, that I think are absolutely essential to building a solid and healthy instance content scene, rather than one that's basically going to appear magically when a release happens and then crumble to dust immediately, right? Which unfortunately is kind of the way things typically go historically in Guild Wars 2. But,
Can you do a poll on what you think of those 3: content cadence, rewards, and what was the other one? Content cadence, rewards, and the lack of matchmaking.
Yeah, okay,
Which
let's
is
do it.
which is the biggest problem?
Okay.
Because I am in the camp. I am one of the people that, for me, getting into a group is fine. I've got a commander tag. I could like put it up whenever I want to get in. Content cadence, we've already spoke about. It is a problem. But the reason there's lots of content already there. There's raids already there. There's strikes. Why am I not doing them every single week? For me, it is rewards.
Oh.
Hands down. It is purely a rewards issue.
I think the quote. Oh, I don't want to bias people. I'm gonna put the poll and then I'll say what I think is the biggest problem. Because otherwise people are gonna just listen to us and then go, oh, my opinion is streamer opinion. I'm gonna give you guys 2 minutes for this. You're gonna have a little more time here. Okay, I'm gonna say biggest problem in instanced content. Okay, here we go. The poll begins. It's gonna be matchmaking, rewards, or content cadence. But anyway, I think the quote-unquote correct answer, that is to say, what is the most detrimental to the scene, is content cadence. That's my take on this. Okay. I think rewards is definitely the biggest for retention, though, right? For, keeping people playing. I think matchmaking, weirdly enough, is actually... This is going to be a really hot take, but matchmaking, I think, is not that much of a big deal. The issue right now is not that players can't get into groups, or rather they can't get into groups, but it's not because of matchmaking. It's because there aren't enough people making groups, specifically at entry level. I want to say 90% of groups on the LFG are from old salty dogs who have been grinding out raids for years, right? There aren't that many new people making groups, right? And matchmaking wouldn't really help with that, because let me tell you something. The old salty dogs wouldn't use matchmaking, right? They would continue to do their own thing, because obviously they don't want random groups, right? Like, that's not what those players want, essentially. I don't think it would be good. I'm saying they should definitely do it. I think that it would be really cool if there was some kind of matchmaking system or streamlining the LFG process, but I don't think it would be much of a magic bullet. And the reason I say this is because the current LFG system actually worked when there was a lot of content. When Wing 1, Wing 2, and Wing 3, especially those 4 came out, the LFG was very active, actually. I mean, like, really, really active. You can find these. You can just Google this, by the way, and find some old screens. Maybe some people can bring them up in the chat right now. But there were some old screenshots of, like, 3 pages, like, on a full monitor of LFGs. Like, seriously, loads of them. Like, we're talking 50 to 100 groups, right? On certain days, pretty active. And that, by the way, is on NA as well. Like, NA used to have a juicy, LFG as well back when these releases happened. So I think content cadence would make the LFG system kind of not matter that much. But to be clear, let me be super precise here so I don't get absolutely wrecked. They should still improve the LFG. The LFG is obviously not up to par, right? That's an incredibly uncontroversial take. The LFG should be improved. The category should be streamlined. Forming a group should be made easier. Better commander features, better leadership features should be added to the game. Commander tags should probably be free. Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, we know all these talking points, right? Result of the poll.
Content cadence.
It is, yeah.
That's interesting. That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I definitely agree, but then I would say, why we already have a lot of raids, a lot of strikes, etc. Why is there such a huge population in Guild Wars 2 that has never even dipped their toe in raids? Even though there's no like content cadence or whatever, they're still there for the people that haven't done them, and they haven't even tried yet. I would say that basically like the other two issues, the rewards and the matchmaking, are the reason that people aren't like getting in, like the current player base.
I would actually point to a slightly weird esoteric problem, and it is poor knowledge transfer in the community. I think Guild Wars 2 has always had this, and maybe you've got some insight into this from your experiences in other games. Knowledge about the game. So stuff like how to build a group, how boons work, how healing works, how movement works, dodging, about face, right? Is barrier good? What builds are strong right now? I think this information is... It's not gate-capped, but it's almost inaccessible, I think, to a lot of... I think a lot of players don't get access to that information. And some of that is the game, right? It's hard to measure your performance, right? Like, how well am I doing? Good question, right? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But also, there just doesn't seem to be that transference where you have a lot of players interacting and learning from each other. Like, there doesn't seem to be that thing where players learn from each other that much. And I think that has led raids to be perceived to be really difficult, because I think what happens is that in contents like raids and strikes, players get into these instances and they don't know how to tackle it, right? They don't know how to approach it. And because there's no knowledge transfer, so they get completely splattered, right? And go, fuck me, that was really hard. But the difficulty is not in the content itself. It's like learning the game, right? It's learning stuff about how boons work, right? How to put a build together, what skills you might want to take, right, to tackle this, right? It's kind of like there's a big game mechanics knowledge check when you go into some of the more challenging group content that just, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be very available or transferable. Like, that to me is why players don't engage. And to go a little bit further on this big epic monologue, the second part of that is the really tough part. And this is one that, honestly, I scratch my head over this. I find this super hard to deal with. Is now, in a way, we're chasing a ghost, because raids are perceived to be borderline impossible. And that information does transfer, right? The perception of raids is that they're insanely difficult. A great example, Sneb does this a lot with his trainees. He says, hey guys, rate how difficult you think this is going to be out of 10. And a lot of the time, the trainees will say 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. That kind of difficulty. And then they clear it, and Sneb says, hey, how difficult was that? And you know what? They say 3 or 4 afterwards, right? And this is the problem. There is a huge amount of misinformation and false perception around instance content that is hard to break through. It is difficult to break that down, to essentially change the basically, look, too long, didn't listen. The narrative around raids and group content is apocalyptically awful in Guild Wars 2. Like, genuinely appalling. I think that they have an extreme negative perception around them. And not even the toxicity stuff, right? Obviously, people think that group content is a bit toxic. In general, that's not true, to be honest. Like, some people are assholes, but hey, look, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going on another rant, guys. I'm going further. I've been doing some open world events, Bloom. Enjoying myself.
Yep.
Farming.
Yep.
Every single Octovine I've been in has been griefed. Everyone. Seriously. And every single time, people get mad and start flaming in map chat. Every single one. And every Drakkar I've been on. People like drop the portals everywhere. They're like fucking trolling. Right? Like, to say that you don't encounter toxicity, like genuine, like mean-spirited toxicity in open world is actually laughable. Right? It is actually funny that people say this. Yeah. You encounter toxicity everywhere, guys. Okay? You know, in open world too.
Wow.
You know, there are always people who are there to be like, "Woo, I'm gonna troll some open world players." Woo! Right? Happens every time. Or maybe someone kills the Octavine too fast. Maybe people get angry, right? You know, they one burn South. People are like, "What the fuck, South? What's wrong with you?" Right?
I think again that's like the problem of having just one difficulty, because you're kind of mixing all the like newer casual players with all the veteran players wanting to get their rewards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. But to bring it like, yeah. Do you think to bring it back to like the strikes conversation, do you think people think strikes are too hard as well?
Yes.
Hmm.
But I think it's a perception.
Do you think?
Right?
Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed, and I've actually been talking to a lot of people about this very topic, actually, and I think it's a great topic to talk about. One of the things that I'm really intent on focusing on with a lot of my activities is making players feel confident. I've had a lot of conversations where players say, like, dude, I'm trash. I can't do this. I'm fucking noob. Right? And I'll never not be noob. It's over. I give up. And obviously, I'm being hyperbolic there, but broadly speaking, that's the message I get from a lot of players. And I think players don't feel confident. They don't feel like they can do this stuff. When, of course, they absolutely can. I am 100% of the opinion that all players who play this game, if they want to get something done, they can do it. Right? If you want to get into raids, hell yeah, you can do it. You want to get good at PvP? Let's do it. Let's get in ranked. Let's grind some games. You want to go into world versus world? Boom. Let's go. I think people can do it. But I think this is the lack of feedback thing, and this is almost like a broader conversation around just Guild Wars 2 in general. But Guild Wars 2 is almost paradoxical because it tries to not allow players to kind of see each other's performance. It also hides performance from the player. And I think this is actually the root of that lack of confidence, is that if you're a player, if you don't install a third-party program, how do you know if you're good or not?
Yeah.
It's actually really hard, right, to make that determination. Like, before Arc DPS, everyone was a total scrub in this game. Like, this is true. One of the things that made the Guild Wars 2 player base get better and understand the game the most was the advent of DPS meters around Heart of Thorns. And don't believe me? Let me tell you something. When Veil Guardian came out, the top guilds, I'm sure many of you gamers will have heard of this, Snow Crows and Quantify. Quantify's Veil Guardian kill, I believe they had around 1.5 minutes left on the timer. This was one of the top guilds in the game, one of the most legendary guilds in the game. And they had they had less DPS than a very standard training group today. In fact, I actually played with my boot camp team, which is a bunch of completely new players who had no experience in instance content, right? In 10-player content. And we cleared it with only 9 players. I was basically 8 players, actually. We were 1 down, and I was spectating, just running around on my Guardian doing nothing. And we killed it significantly faster than the early kills, right, of Veil Guardian. And that is because a little bit of power creep, but also, well, a lot of power creep, but also just the understanding of the game and just the general community knowledge about the mechanics has massively increased. And that's all because the game told us, or rather, Arc DPS said, hey, you're bad, right? And by the way, that's not other players saying that. I'm role-playing as Arc. I'm the little voice of the DPS meter. Hey, you're doing 15k DPS. You suck, right? That's Arc talking to me. And then everyone got better. It was like, oh shit, I guess we should probably do some more damage. Feedback is important, and the lack of feedback in a lot of content in Guild Wars 2, I think really rattles the confidence of players, and that means they go, dude, I can't fucking do raids. I'm trash. I'm noob. But I'll tell you what, maybe you are noob, but you can get better. Hell yeah. And you're probably not as noob as you think.
This is a good conversation topic because we kind of like
Yeah.
talked about it the other day, but now we can make it official on the TeaTime. But the only thing I would say against that is that no other MMO has an inbuilt DPS either.
Mm.
They all you require third-party add-ons. So why do people feel more ready to just jump into raids and that sort of thing in WoW and Final Fantasy 14? I think it's that they've got 4 difficulties. So the idea of like
the base
easy
is easier. Yeah.
being the base being this easy just jump in match made thing where they can just try it out. That is a massive factor as to why I think people they can build up confidence to climb those tiers if there's like that easy baseline to learn them, the basic mechanics. And then they've also got proper like gating.
Yes.
Proper gating of content. They're not just like flooded with all this stuff at the same time. You gotta work your way up. You get like a little. You gotta hit a item level number, and the game gives you a little certificate that says, "Hey, you've hit the item level number. You can now go into this piece of content." And they feel ready because they got the little certificate. They've got the qualification. Yeah, Guild Wars 2 has none of those qualifications, which is great, but it's also kind of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a fascinating conversation here. I completely agree with this because in a way, the gear gating, in a sense, that is the game saying, "Hey, you're ready."
Yeah.
Right. That's what the game is communicating. If you have a certain item level, the game is saying, "Hey, do this. You're up." Right. Whoop, off you go. And look, it's not as unhinged as it sounds because fractals, bear in mind, some of the most popular content in the game, fractals already does this. It does this in 2 ways. Because 1, you have to level up your fractal level to even access the higher tiers on the LFG. So that's like 1 gate. You have to play through all the fractals in order, more or less, kind of, right? To upgrade your fractal level. And 2, you are going to need ascended gear. And not just ascended gear. You're going to need to actually buy infusions to put in your ascended gear to actually, upgrade your agonism. So it's like a double gate, right? Like a double gate. And you know what? It works, right? And I'm not a huge fan of the fractal system. I think it's weird for Guild Wars 2, in a sense. But would it be the end of the universe if raids and strike missions kind of nudge you to having full exotic gear? Maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe that would actually help. Yeah. It's a bit of a paradox, right? Maybe if the game said, "Hey, you've got some good ass gear here. You've got all your runes matched up. You got your sigils. You got your exotic gear. You're ready to go." Right? I think that it would be interesting if there was some kind of gear score system added to the game. I think there's something there. And then maybe there could be a recommended gear score for certain parts of content. And by the way, there actually is a third-party implementation of gear score right now, by the way, gamers. And what it does is it does exactly what we described. It looks at your gear and it checks if all your runes match. It checks if you have sigils and it checks if you have, exotic gear and all your items, equipment, stuff like that. And it will give you a number that says how good your gear is, right? All this kind of stuff. And to be clear, I'm not saying this should be public so that, other players could do that. To be honest, I think that would be okay. I think that information transference is always good in general and doesn't result in bad behavior. Most of the time, it would probably improve good behavior. Because bear in mind, right now, guys, if you get kicked from a raid, it's probably going to be either for a dumb reason. Well, no, I need to actually not spread misinformation. Realistically, if you get kicked from a raid, most of the time it's because you don't meet the requirements or you are not playing very well. Right, is what's going to happen. I'm not going to lie. But if you get kicked like randomly for gear, it's going to be for a dumb reason, right? Rather than a good reason. At least if you actually had an actual number, you probably wouldn't get kicked for a stupid reason.
Yeah, and I think you've said before on a TeaTime, you said that if ArenaNet don't make the rules and implement in the game, the community will. They will make the rules, and it will always be worse than what ArenaNet can implement. The other thing about like requiring ascended gear to do something is that when players hit that wall, they try to enter that content and they see a little text pop up that says, "You need full ascended gear." What do you think the first thing they Google is? They Google how to get ascended gear. and they will see that it is a process to get full gear. And so just because of that time investment, they are going to do the research to figure out what the right set of gear to get is. So you're not having, people just like jumping in with random, I don't know, soldiers
Yeah, you're not
sets
going to
full
waste your
ascendant.
set, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because there's a lot of commitment there to get the full
Mm,
set. And I think that's why fractals kind of like tier 4 fractals kind of do so well, is that you kind of when you match with people in tier 4s, you kind of assume that they have decent stats because they've put so much
mm,
time investment into
yeah,
getting that full ascended gear. And
yeah,
it's yeah, I mean that's it. It
yeah.
just like it really helps with like directing players to figuring
Mm,
out what they need the most. And like this doesn't happen on any level in Guild Wars. It doesn't happen at the ascended or
mm,
exotic or rare, like even rare, It doesn't happen at any point where the player has to ask themselves, well, okay, if I'm going to put in this time commitment, what are the exact stats I want? What are the exact runes I want? That
yeah,
sort of thing.
yeah. And
Because then, yeah,
the,
yeah,
the,
yeah. Just real
yeah,
quick, because yeah, if the
mhm,
requirement also says you need a full set of runes, they go look up how to get runes, and they'll go,
exactly.
okay,
And
well, they're expensive. I've got to figure out which set of runes I want, and it's not just like whatever I've got on already.
I think that's a great point. I bet if you checked how many people have random bits of exotic or rare gear, it's probably pretty high. But if you then checked ascended, it's probably significantly lower, exactly because of what you described, right?
Yeah,
And as a one more thing on the gear check thing, bear in mind, guys, even though I'm saying you could kind of keep it private or just have it as something that players can work on, bear in mind, fractals actually kind of soft gear check you. You can see other people's agony resistance. If someone has
yeah,
150 AR, you know they probably have full ascended or they wasted a huge amount of money on like plus 15s or something weird like that. So yeah, fractals right now, content where, to be honest, is not, it's very chill, right? I think tier 4s, I've been in a lot of fractals right now, and it's honestly super chill. It's very cozy. And it literally has gear check in it, or passive gear check. And I think
yeah,
passive information transference like this could be good because, again, one of the reasons why players these days, especially for squad content, typically don't use the LFG as much. A lot of stuff is handled in Discord servers, in guilds and private communities, is because exactly what Bloom quoted me saying. If the game does not give you the tools to control your experience, then the players will take it into their own hands. People are busy, right? Okay, busy people, busy lives. People have not got time to waste feeding because people have joined a group and they have no way of determining who has a good experience level, who's got good gear, right? Who's going to, be able to respond or communicate in a good way. So people go to Discord and play with their friends where they can control that. Because if you're in a guild or you're in a Discord community, you can moderate that behavior. You can say, hey, if you want to come and play in our community, you have to be willing to put in effort. You have to be willing to gear a character and get a build that is powerful and will be effective for this content. So, to be clear, this is one of those really weird situations where adding more information and adding some gating to the game, not gatekeeping, gating to the game, will actually make the community more open. This is a really interesting kind of paradoxical thing that's going on here. Guild Wars 2, in a lot of ways, doesn't have enough gates. And quite ironically, that actually leads to gatekeeping, right? Because players make their own instead, because the game doesn't provide them. And a lot of the time, because players have less information than the game, right? That results in players doing kind of weird halfway house scuffed gating, like all the KP and LI kind of stuff that goes on. That exists because there isn't an actual good way in the game to determine experience levels and set expectations.
and people want to play. I think the majority of people want to play with people around their same skill level because that's where they feel the most comfortable. And that kind of gating really helps facilitate that, right? Because taking WoW as an example, you got to hit a certain item level to do the LFG,
Mm.
the LFR difficulty, the easiest. And then once you've hit a high enough item level, you're able to do the next tier up. And so that means that everyone in the same sort of like region, the same sort of item level region, they're all playing together in this easier mode. And then when you work your way up, you're playing with people of, a higher skill level again, and then again and again. And yeah, this is where it's difficult with Guild Wars 2 because you don't have that gating. So you just got everyone at the lower end here who are also playing with the veterans, and people get cranky, and it's just like a weird mix. And I think having those gates is really vital to allowing people to just play with people of similar skill level.
You know, I'm going to do a bit of a preview of one of the next stream debate rant arcs. And we're doing it now. We're doing it live.
Ooh.
We've got big problems with not just instance content code. This is a broad one. With the culture in Guild Wars 2 in general. And it's not actually the player base's fault. I think you can actually put a lot of the... This is a bit of a consequence of the game's systems. Just prefacing that here. Guild Wars 2 right now, all group content relies on a very small amount of people going above and beyond. And I'm talking about commanders here, actually. Think about open world metas. Open world metas are entirely contingent on players tagging up, right? And essentially taking that leadership position right now. And one of the biggest reasons why players don't make groups, in my opinion, is a cultural one. It's because culturally in Guild Wars 2, people go, this is the commander. They are responsible for if we win or lose. I can do nothing. If the comm is good, we win. If we win, comm is good. If we lose, it's all the commander's fault. And I'm exaggerating here, but I think that actually is a little bit of a cultural thing, right? And that can be great. If you're successful, you get all the glory, right? You're like, yes, I can take credit for this. I am the best commander ever. I'm smashing these raids. I'm farming hard, right? But the downside is that obviously sometimes things don't work out, right? And that can be a bit of a burden. And my argument here is that shouldn't be the case. In fact, I think this is probably one of the biggest problems that the game has. Who's been in this situation, right? Where you're on a chat Garant map and it's 5 minutes. You could easily tag up, but people are like, dude, fuck that. I'm going to get into the other map. I can't do it. I don't want to tag up. What if the map fails? It's over for me. Then I'm going to get roasted. I'm going to be noob. I'm going to get exposed. People will literally AFK or even miss the event rather than tag up themselves and basically get their own map going. They want to go and join someone else's map. This is so common. Happens a lot on Dragon's End, obviously, as it's one of the more challenging events. But this is a huge, huge issue. In fact, I would go as far to say this is the biggest problem that Guild Wars 2 faces when it comes to instance content. And that probably includes fractals as well, actually, especially when players are starting out, is that kind of the systems, because you get an actual marker on your head, right? When you're a leader, but also culturally, the game puts way too much pressure. The game and player base puts way too much pressure on a very small amount of people who essentially end up carrying everyone else. Right? In a sense, right? Carry the organizational burden. Let's be specific. They carry the initiative for everyone. And a lot of people are very passive and kind of wait around. That is a problem. We need to take that pressure off a little bit, but also we need to encourage players to be more active, right? Because another symptom of this is that who's been in this situation? I bet a lot of people have been here. Who's joined like a training run? Nobody says anything. You do one try, you wipe, nobody says everything, and people then immediately leave.
Yeah.
That's a problem, right?
I mean, I was going to say, this is an interesting conversation because I fall into that camp. I am one of those people that has a commander tag, and I will just instead wait around to join someone else's. So you can probably interview me on this because this is literally I am one of those people that is too afraid to tag up and lead an open world event. I would never dare to try and lead Dragon's Stand or Dragon's End or Chuck Garrett. Even though I know the game, I don't want to deal with the responsibility of that many players when I'm sitting down to play my video games for an hour or two. It's a lot of responsibility with none of the payoff. You get nothing for it. Absolutely nothing. If you fail, people will flame you. If you win, you get the same rewards as everyone else. So it's definitely a systems problem in that I feel like there should be something extra involved. If you are commanding, it is a lot of extra responsibility. Um, yeah.
I would
I
go.
don't know what you do to change perception about it though, because it's so
Yeah.
like it's so deeply ingrained. Um, that I don't know what ArenaNet, even if ArenaNet, like, say, made Commander Tag free and everyone had one, you've still got that really strong responsibility of looking after a bunch of other players, and you're responsible for their rewards, because if you fail, none of you get anything. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, to be honest, I think it's a big part of like the Guild Wars 2's all or nothing approach. You either win and you get the rewards, or you fail and you get nothing.
Mm. Well, I really do think that adding more rewards, hey, I'm down, right? But I do think it's a band-aid. I really think this is a cultural one. Because it, in my opinion, is untenable if you have, or rather, it's not sustainable to have a situation in a public LFG where everyone is reliant on a small amount of people. That is not reasonable. If you have a static, I think it's a lot more reasonable in that context, right? Where you know people, someone is the leader of the group, potentially. I think that is acceptable. And even that, by the way, can burn people out, right? This happens, right? Groups obviously come and they go, they build up and they disband, right? There's still a lot of pressure and leadership. But when it's in a completely random environment, that is brutal, right? Because you're interacting with people you don't know. You might be playing content that you aren't familiar with, right? That is not workable. To have a public grouping system where one person has to basically carry the entire group. No. I think this has to change on a cultural level. We need to be inspiring people to take responsibility, to help the commander, to volunteer advice. The commander should feel okay to say, hey guys, I haven't done this. Has anyone done this? Can someone kind of tell us what we're doing here, right? People should also be comfortable with the idea of kind of going in and figuring it out, right? You don't need someone to train you, How do you think people who cleared raids for the first time cleared them? Yeah, we just went in and, pissed about and saw what happened, right? I've got to release this stuff. I've got to do this stuff. But I have a video recording of my first Veil Guardian. I played for about 5 hours a day with total randoms, right, from the LFG. 5 hours a day for 6 days. And we killed it on the 6th day. And when I went to bed, I could hear people saying blue, green. And I would, you know that thing where you're like half falling asleep? And I would just like wake up and jolt because I could just hear the blue and the green calls happening, and I could see, I had the Tetris effect, right? I could see the platform lighting up when my eyes were shut, right? Because we were on there for such a long time. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to have that experience. Obviously, that's a little hardcore, right? I get you. But that's okay, right? Sometimes you get in there and you blast it out, and it takes you like half an hour to kill it, or an hour to kill it, right? And I think people need to be okay with having that experience. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you a bad player. Like, you shouldn't expect to kill it first try, right? If you kill it first try, the boss is very easy, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I really want to put some serious work into not only improving the confidence of commanders, but also I think we need a cultural shift here. We need to be much more of a team effort rather than one person who arbitrarily has the tag and has to hard carry the entire group. In my opinion, your obligation as the commander starts and ends with getting people in the group and maybe moving people into subgroups. You can actually ask for help with that as well. That is your obligation, and probably pressing the ready check button, right? But other than that, I think it should be far more distributed in these group environments, because otherwise it's just so much pressure on these players. And players who do take that leadership position, they're obviously going to kind of move towards more comfortable environments. And yeah, that's private groups. It's way less stressful when you're in a private group environment rather than having to deal with, completely new people who you don't know, you're not comfortable with, every single day, right? That's obviously going to be an unsustainable thing for you to do. And of course, the reward for leadership, oh man, am I going to get roasted for this? I wonder if I'm going to get roasted. The reward for leadership is control. Okay? If you're a leader, you have responsibility, but you have power. You set the rules, and you get to basically decide what the group is doing and how the group is going to do it. And the thing is that it's very difficult to do that in the in-game LFG. You can do it in, of course, your own guild or your own group, which is why players acclimatize that. Because anyone who's leading, in a way, yeah, leadership is a thankless task in Guild Wars 2, right, to an extent, right, in the LFG. You don't get anything for it. You don't get the payoff. The payoff is that you get to, do what you want, basically. And you do have that a little bit, in open world, having the tag is amazing, because it's like, oh, I missed the map, but hey, I can make another map right now. Oh, I'm late for Dragon's End. Well, actually, no, I'm not. This is my map now. That is a reward in and of itself in open world, but in instance content, it's a lot less rewarding, like paradoxically almost, right? It's way less rewarding to actually use the tag, right? In instance content.
I'm going to say that I feel like a lot of the community probably just doesn't care about the control aspect. Like they really just want to jump in to a strike or a raid and just do it with people around their similar skill level. Because I certainly am. I definitely fall into that camp. I don't really care about the fact that I can pick like, who's going to be alacrity, quickness, and like get my optimal sort of like team composition together so we could just blast this out. I literally just tag up so that I can get people into the group. And I think that we've talked about it many times before. I'm sure that this discussions happen all the time, but like the commander tag alone is already really prohibitive, being 300 gold, and it's tucked away in world versus world to go get it, and it's just like it's a very weird system. And I think just allowing anyone to be able to open groups and organize it is like the first step.
Yep, that should definitely be done. I really do think though is that the perception should be, if you've got the tag, you are making a group. That's it. You are making the group. You don't have to train everyone. You don't have to know every single mechanic or play your class perfectly, right? And, kind of give people a bit of a little cheerlead, right? When people are getting a little bit down. No, your responsibility is you're making the group. That's it. And this is a systemic issue, right? I understand that we actually, in a way, kind of have to fight against this because, I mean, look, you literally get a marker over your head. So it is kind of, the game, in a way, is saying, hey, this guy's in charge. This guy knows what he's doing. Like, it is a little bit in that direction. And that's hard to get around. I actually don't know how you do that. I don't know how you fix that. Other games don't handle it that differently, right? Because I think you're marked with a party leader in World of Warcraft, for example. There is a leadership position there.
But I feel like, I'm pretty sure in WoW, like when
you get a little crown next to your name, don't you? And when you type in chat, you're party leader, right? Like you have like a special text thing.
Yeah. Correct, but you don't have like a marker above your head as you're running
not in
around.
Game. Yeah, not in game.
So it's not like it makes everyone feel like they're on the same playing field. It's not like this is the leader, follow the leader sort of thing.
Yeah.
And most games do this as well. Like Final Fantasy also just has, you create the party and you're just the party leader, and there's no preconceived notion that the party leader is supposed to know what's happening, because it's so easy to create a party. You hit create party, there's no requirement, so it's implied that they're just there to create the party. They're not actually there to like lead anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would just love to see what would happen if they remove that price, right? Because
I think it's such low hanging fruit too. Like it surely cannot be that hard, Yeah.
just put it to a different vendor, or just make it baseline, right? Just unlock the tag for everyone.
Just make it, 100%. Just
Because look, the thing is that I don't think it would actually. I think this is a great point. I didn't really think about it this way before. Like the 300 gold, in my opinion, is actually not a gate, but it changes the perception, doesn't it?
Yes,
because here's the deal: the 300 gold, hot take, not a big deal. Evidence: if you go into an open world map and you right click on people, over 50% of people have the tag. That's true. That is just the way it is. A lot of people have it, but not a lot of people use it. And I think that 300 gold price, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. Oh yes. It's like, oh shit, this is important. 300 gold. If it was a baseline game feature that you didn't have to unlock, that'd be a huge deal for the perception of that entire position, which could be really good for the overall state of the game. So, yep, fix it, ArenaNet. Sure. And also, everyone watching, cut your comma break, all right? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you'd see a similar thing happen if any other game gave you this like massive gold requirement just to create parties, Yeah. It does a huge thing for perception. I will say, though, I am in the camp of 300 gold being quite prohibitive. Because at least for anyone getting into the game, because everything is competing for your gold in Guild Wars 2. Literally everything. All quality of life in the gem store you can buy with gold, so that's all competing for your gold. You've got skins which are way cooler than than a commander tag. So yeah, it's just it's a tough place to be in. I just think it's very strange.
Yeah. I would absolutely. You know what? What do you think about this? Now we're kind of on this because now I'm thinking
Yeah.
about other things that could alter the perception. Do you
Yeah.
think that the fact that there is no squad or tag commander system in 5-player content is relevant? I feel like. What do you think about that? Because it actually very
Yes.
strictly says these are not the same, right? You know what I mean? It's saying
Yep.
this is separate. You know, when you're in a party in a dungeon or a fractal, it's saying this is one thing, and when you go to a strike, strike, squad, commander, tag, markers, ready check, right? All that kind of stuff. And that's interesting to me as well. I think this would be so cool if they added the squad features to fractals, because imagine being able to place markers and do ready checks in fractals. Oh my god, so good. Right? If you're able to do that, I think that would be a huge quality of life improvement. And of course, it normalizes the experience between these two things, which would probably maybe make a squad seem a lot less intimidating than perhaps it is. Because bear in mind, tier 4 fractals, not the hardest thing in the universe, but definitely harder than some strike missions, right? For sure.
Yeah.
The entry level strikes. But, and, challenge modes, I would say, are comparable to raids, right? Some of the challenge mode fractals, they got some tough stuff in there. Little juice, right? So I think it would be really cool if that experience was normalized so that perception is fixed. And this is kind of what I meant by some of it is cultural, some of it is systemic, right? The game does kind of say, look, this is special. This is a commander. This is a squad. Ooh, right? So removing that and also shifting the culture is important too, because bear in mind the culture doesn't exist for no reason. It does kind of follow the systems. You can change it, but it's obviously influenced by the game itself.
100%. I've never really felt that feeling in fractals. I've never felt like one guy is the leader. They've got to know what to do, because you kind of all feel on an even playing field. You're all just like little portraits in the corner. There's no little leadership tag. I think it's a fantastic point. Yeah. Especially because there is no squad content in the game early on until you hit those meta events and instance PvE content. So you're very used to this party system where there is no tag, there is no follow the leader, and then when you hit it, you're like, oh shit, here we go. This is a proper endgame. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I'm just I really struggle because we're going to be pushing back on an in-game system. It's always going to be hard to change overall perception on that, and I'm really not sure. I just don't know what the solution is. It's just, for me, it's just hounding ArenaNet to fix it, do something about it, because the community can really only do so much. But when it's an in-game ingrained system, there are going to be more new players joining and encountering this than we can convert. So it's just going to be a never-ending issue,
Yeah, 100%. I would love to see ArenaNet have some time. They've got that quality of life team. I would love to see that quality of life team just smash some stuff out, like getting raid checks into fractals, finding a way to make the contact free. And you know what? Not even a collection, by the way. I think that even that would not. I think I'm sold. Yeah. That's
Not
still spooky. Collection. It's something special. This is a special person, a special character. No, it needs to be baseline, right? In the game, it needs to be completely a standard, normal thing to make a group and tag up.
Yeah, for sure. It should just be a vanilla system. As someone suggested, should it be in masteries or something? And like, even then, no. Even then, no. It's still just like kind of too much. It's kind of this like little extra thing. Yeah, just make it like a baseline system. It should be just as easy as like typing things in chat. It should be as easy as that to just create a squad and start inviting people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else?
I don't know.
That was
Not sure. I
intense.
feel like
That was intense.
we really covered a lot.
Yeah, we went for it there. That was
Yeah, we covered
yeah.
like it was supposed to be strikes, but we've gone into raids,
Yeah.
open world, fractals, everything.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were just going berserk. I mean, I think the issues are all linked, right?
Yeah.
I do think that some of these, I think we made some, cover some new ground, cover some new source, I think, in this situation. You know what though? If you are you aware of Zojagar? Let me go ahead and link you this. I'm gonna just link you something in TeaTime chat real quick. I'm not even gonna show it on stream. This might be too far, right?
No.
Let me just take a look at this. Take a look at this image. What do you make of this?
Sorry, this post has been removed by the moderators of Guild Wars 2.
Wait, what? Okay, hang on. I'll link you the image directly.
I literally just
take a look at this.
Thanks, I hate it. That's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you like that someone made that? Someone has created that.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Wow. I like the little ears do it for me. It blows everything out of proportion.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that's a good place to wrap things up about now. Actually, I think for this tea time, that was a good one. We covered some new ground there. Actually, I like that. I like what that discussion went. It was some good stuff actually. Some good points there, and ArenaNet. You just simply watch the tea time and implement everything we say into the game, and
exactly
easy.
It is that easy. I feel like there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that ArenaNet could tackle for sure within the next year. Really just simple stuff.
Fix the game.
And I really hope they get on it. And I hope that they maybe talk about these issues. I feel like that it's never really, we bring this up in like tea time and in streams and stuff, but I feel like I've never quite seen ArenaNet talk about these issues and identify them and communicate that they are aware of these issues, particularly when it comes to like creating groups and playing with people of similar skill level. I just feel like they've never really talked about it. I wonder why. They're really cagey about it. I guess because they know that the system is flawed and they don't want to sort of like admit it, but I hope they do at some point. Passing
roast, actually. How do you feel about the fact that ArenaNet has stopped communicating? What yeah. Okay, that's the final topic. We're gonna end it with a massive roast. Let's go.
I threw my headphone off.
Yeah, the rage, the anger.
Yeah, a little strange. It kind of gives me the vibe that they only really communicate when they know they've got something coming up to kind of build towards, but when nothing's happening, I think they just don't want to say anything because they kind of don't want to draw attention to it, because what are they going to say? They're going to communicate and be like, oh, we know you're disappointed with Gala Delves, but we've got some cool stuff coming up. Right now it has felt like a lot of talk and not a lot of walking action, unfortunately. Not a lot of walking. Which because it's very, I get the vibe from blog posts and stuff with the idea that they want to keep pushing strikes and fractals and stuff, that they are all in on Guild Wars 2. But at the same time, I've not seen that in game yet.
You know what? One final. I'm ready. I'm ready for the final.
Do it. Yeah. Do
final meme. I can't resist doing this. And you know what? Keep it as esoteric and confusing as possible, so that people who don't know don't understand. The tunnel. What are your thoughts on the tunnel? The tunnel. If the tunnel is real, what do we think?
The tunnel.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the tunnel is not real. The tunnel is an illusion. It is a red herring. We will not get tunnel. We will get better than tunnel. Okay? Have faith. Stay strong. We will beat tunnel. All right?
I must applaud ArenaNet. The tunnel made me realize my expectations for Guild Wars 2 weren't actually at 0 like I thought. I swore I was immune, but this might be the thing to actually make me quit. Now I stand ready for the cleansing nuke of the tunnel. Though I may not survive it, I will accept it, to become one with the dirt and foster an entirely new cycle of growth. This is a Guild Wars 2 player's ultimate calling. It is time. Tunneling.
I am not in acceptance phase. I am in denial phase. But we'll see how wrong I am.
But okay, I think that's going to wrap things up with a confusing, hilarious meme there. Okay, and you know what? Bloom, I appreciate you coming out. Okay, waking up early, getting fresh, ready to go on TeaTime here. Okay, you know, it was going to be 4 players on TeaTime. 4 players. It's going to be 4 people on TeaTime, but unfortunately, things came up, and the other 2 guests weren't able to make it. I mean, it's Easter Sunday. I mean, I kind of get it, right? You know, not for you, though. Yeah. For you, it's not anymore.
No. Well, for me, it's actually Easter Monday. Which is the only reason I can get up at a ridiculous hour like this, because now I can go and sleep.
Yeah, so some stuff going on there. It's a little confusing. But anyway.
Yeah.
Still an excellent TeaTime, I think. Let us know what you're up to. Give us the details. Tell us where we can find your opinions on the tunnel when it drops.
Okay. Opinions on the tunnel will be on my YouTube channel, which is just Bloom. If you can't find it, because there's lots of other Blooms, just type Bloom Guild Wars 2. I make Guild Wars 2 and sometimes general sort of MMO videos on other MMOs. So if you want sort of like a semi-casuals take on MMO goings on, then feel free to drop on by. Yeah. I'll be playing... I haven't played a lot of Guild Wars 2 lately. I've mostly been into WoW, Destiny, but you bet I'm going to be back for the tunnel, and I will have thoughts on the tunnel. So, yeah, come on, drop on by. Yeah.
Yeah. And there you go. The links are in the chat. They're going to be in the description as well, of course, and below the stream. So definitely check them out. And of course, if you enjoy this TeaTime, a lot more TeaTimes are available. You can go watch all of them. TeaTime regular show, regular Guild Wars 2 content. There's so much to talk about in Guild Wars 2 right now. Oh man, we can just keep going forever. The game is so alive. The game is so exciting. I'm excited. You're excited. Everyone's excited. It feels so good. So definitely follow, subscribe, come back and watch every single day. Follow me on Twitter. Follow all my social media, because that's what you're supposed to do on the internet. That's what you do as an influencer. Get over there right now and click it all. Join the Discord. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Bloom on Twitter. Subscribe to Bloom's YouTube channel. Yes. Get in there right now. Come on. But anyway, that's going to do it for now.
I just want to say, the main reason I came on today was all the rat jams in chat the other day. Everyone wanted to see me on, so I came for all those rat jams.
Yeah, I mean, people want to see you. Like, you know,
just know that.
Basically what you're saying, though, I mean, you've made a mistake there. You've misplayed. You're now saying you will destroy your sleep schedule in exchange for rat jams. Right,
It is correct. It is correct. That is the correct assessment. If there is enough rat jams, I will always appear. All right.
But anyway, that's it for now, gamers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy, gamers. We're out.